Hey, how's everybody doing today? It's Relationships 101. I'm Pastor Sean Strickland here with my. You need me to get over? Oh.
There you go.
Okay. I'm Pastor Sean Strickland here with my super cute husband, Pastor. Super dope. Today we're super dope. We have our shirts by Jaleesa. Jaleesa is Crystal's sister for everybody who knows Crystal Robinson, and she does these t-shirts. Yep. And so we are here today with our my husband is dope. My wife is dope t-shirt today. And we were having this conversation just before we came on where Pastor Edwin, was having a conversation with one of our guests about how, this is a cool shirt for this kind of broadcast, but he wouldn't just be walking around with this shirt on. And I'm trying to figure out why he wouldn't just be walking around with this shirt on.
Because then all the men would be wanting to talk to you.
Oh man,
so dope.
Going on with that.
Don't say going on.
Going on with that. That is how many believe that's some garbage?
I don't want to be advertising how wonderful you are, how dope you are.
Jeez. Anyway, guys, so we're here tonight with a special edition of Relationships 101. And so, you know what we need you to do? We need you to hashtag live and tell us where you're watching from. We need you to hashtag replay if you're coming in to watch the replay. We need you to tell us where you're coming from, and we need you to tag somebody who is in a relationship. And if you are alive, you are in a relationship, right? Now, today we're going to be talking specifically about something romantic, but as you know, all of our previous teachings have worked for you whether you are in a romantic relationship or not. But today we are going to be talking about romantic relationships, and I'm super excited because we are going to be talking about finding love again. Everybody put that in the comments, finding love again. And I am thrilled that we are doing this particular session because I believe that in a world where it is so easy to focus on the negative and it's so easy to focus on all of what's wrong with the dating pool. And I'm not saying there are not problems out there, but I'm also saying that what you focus on is what you're going to attract. And a lot of people don't realize that because they have bought into the negativity, right? I remember years ago, somebody used to say, you don't need but one man, you don't need but one woman. God will raise up one person, right? And so I hope that this remind someone that love is possible and that loving again is possible. And I hope it makes people not foolish, but at least open to the fact that your next love can come from God in a way that you never ever imagined. So if you know somebody who wants to love again, they want to be happily married again, they they want to have somebody that they can get to dress up twice a year in a tux and go to a special event with, like I make you do. Like if they want that, then I encourage you to tag them. But I also encourage you to listen with an open heart and an open mind. Don't listen and go, oh, that happened for them, it can never happen for me. Because whether you believe it can or you believe it can't, you're going to be right. So we're talking about finding love again.
And here's the key to this. This is not a episode so we can just talk about just finding love. The couples and the individuals that we're going to have on tonight, we're really talking about the mindset it took to find love again. Because you can have a desire to want love, but if you don't have the right philosophical mindset, if you're not thinking in the right way, love can present itself and you won't even be aware of it. Or you were rejected. So I don't want you to just go, oh, this is a sappy finding love again episode. No. We're going to talk to people about, what happened when you got your heart broke? What happened when you got married and thought it was a forever after and it didn't end that way? What happened when you were with someone and both of you just grew apart? What did that do to your psyche? What did it do to you, philosophically? How do you see things? And the people that we have with us tonight are people of godly wisdom, but they're also people who have walked through some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight, and they're living examples of what can happen and what is possible. So right now, it looks like we're at about 92 people. We're at about 92 people.
I'm adding my people right now.
And so I know that there were close to 278 people, I think, who said they were either interested in coming or they were coming. I know how people get off work. Things are happening. So the 93 of you that are watching from the various pages, whether you're watching on the Edwin and Sean Strickland page, whether you're watching on my personal page, Pastor Sean's personal pages, maybe you're watching from even our church account, wherever you're watching from, I need you to pause for just a moment. And I need you to hit that share button. I need you to hit that share button. I need you to tag your friends, your family. I need you to say, hey, don't forget, it's Relationships 101 tonight. I can tell you guys are doing it. We're already up to 97. We're about to hit this 100 mark. And when we hit the 100 mark, I'm going to introduce our guest, and then we're going to get started and get out of here tonight because it's going to be a power-packed episode, and I don't want you to miss it. I don't want you to miss it. So if you're excited, go ahead and put some hearts in the comment section, put some fire in the comment section. If you're ready to go, let me see you type in the comments. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. I'm looking for some people who are ready. 103. There we go. 102. We're ready to go. We're ready to go. Let me introduce to you who our guests are tonight. two of the guests, if you have been with me in Ed Talk, you've already met them because they were with us when we talked about overcoming and dealing with shame. And they did such a fantastic job. I just had to ask, can you please come back for another episode where we're going to be talking about finding love again? And so I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first guest. His name is Bernard Piggy. He is Minister Bernard Piggy Jr., and he is the head and CEO of BJ Piggy Ministries. And if you know him, and you may follow him and watch him, he has a teaching broadcast that he does every Thursday night at 7. So I encourage you, if you like the things that he say, that you start tuning in and watching some of that. So I'm going to go ahead and welcome him. Welcome, BJ. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are y'all?
We're great. We're great. We're great. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. My next couple that I'm going to introduce, our next guest for tonight. One of them needs no well, neither one of them. If you pay attention and you come to church and you are on prayer and you are understanding what's happening with our kids and you do anything involved with our ministry, and they are Mr. and Mrs. And I'm gonna do it this way because they're both here. Kevin Williams, Pastor Nitra and Kevin, and so they're with us. And so let me bring them into the studio. Hello, how you guys doing tonight?
Hey, we're
good. How are y'all? We're wonderful. We appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for volunteering, being voluntold. However that works, I appreciate it. And so we are here tonight, and you guys know that we said we were going to talk about finding love again. And Pastor Sean and I have the unique opportunity to talk to so many different people about so many different things. But one of the things that often comes up that I tend to see quite often is that when people have been injured or they have been hurt in some way involving matters of the heart, that is one of the areas that people can tend to just really shut everything out. Mm-hmm. And I get it. I understand why, because our hearts are vulnerable, right? It's like, I know we used to say this old saying, it's not true, but we used to say when we were kids, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words would never hurt me. But words are those things that can pierce our heart. Yeah. Words that people say when they're angry, words that people say sometimes even when they're trying to be nice and they just say something that's just so out of whack, right? And so we know our hearts are fragile. And thank God for Jesus, because he can put them back together again. Amen. Mm-hmm. And so tonight we just wanted to just kind of talk about just kind of really helping people with the mindset of how do I, if I'm a person out there and, you know, I got my heart broke, and I know this sounds silly, but I got my heart broke in middle school. And since I got my heart broke in middle school, I ain't trusted nobody since. Or I was told that someone was going to propose to me, and I was with them for 3 years, and then they didn't, and they walked away, and 6 months later they got married to somebody else, you know. Or I was with the love of my life, and they promised me, you know, through sickness and health, to death do us part. And 3 years later, they forgot about all of that, and they left me, right? Or there was financial infidelity or physical infidelity. Or in some cases, you know, we're going to talk about, you know, what happens when you do everything right, but through life circumstances, you lose your partner, the partner that you were with, that you thought you were going to be with. How do I recover from that? I've talked to several people who are in their 50s and 60s, you know, people who are, you know, our age or a little older. And it's amazing how many people our age has had that happen to them. You don't always think about it because, you know, you just kind of moving and shaking and thinking everybody's going to live forever, but it doesn't happen that way all the time. And so we're going to talk to people about, you know, what happened? How did you get back to that place? And so I don't know how we should start, if we should just let them introduce themselves or what you want to do, but I appreciate you guys being here. And I think what you're going to say tonight is really going to bless somebody.
So I think that one of the things we could do is that, obviously ladies first, but we could start with Nitra, and each person could say, here's just a little bit of my story and why I'm here. Sure. And then we begin to build the questions from that.
Sounds great to me. Now,
So-
see, Pastor Nitra, I know last time we talked about women not going first, so I didn't do that. Pastor Sean said women go first this time.
And so I'm gonna say yes, ma'am, and I'm gonna go first. So as everybody is
But if you go first, you always get to frame it. You want to go first because you get to set it up.
okay. Well, no. So I'm Tenitria Williams, and I lived my life for Jesus, and I got married, and that marriage did not last forever. And then I was divorced, and I was living life, being a mom. And in the context of this conversation, just I wanted to be married again. I never said the whole I don't want to be married, forget love. I was like, no, I want to love again, but it has to be healthy. It has to be, right. And so I was kind of floating along through life doing my thing. I never felt desperate to get married. It was just something, if it happens, it'll be a great thing, but I'm not going to, again, I didn't feel desperate. And then came a little Kevin. And he kind of stole my heart, and kind of. Okay,
Lil Hood still having trouble admitting the fullness, right?
No. I'm soft and tender now. So he came along, and I was like cheesing all the time and smiling and being all girly, and so I said yes, and here we are on the broadcast.
So after your divorce, what was it like before you got back into the dating scene? And I only ask that because we talk to people. I've known people who, after a breakup or after the dissolution of a marriage, they immediately get back into dating. But then I know other people who like almost swore off of dating. So what was your mind frame around that particular idea? You said you wanted to find love again. You said you never was like, I ain't gonna never get married. Men are terrible. You never said those kind of things. But what was your mindset during that time?
So for me, it was, I do want to find love again, but I knew I needed to take time to heal from what had happened. And so, and I'm not saying everybody has to go through this long, drawn out process, but I knew I had some stuff that I needed to heal from. So I wasn't focused at all on getting right back into a relationship. I was like, I'm good over here, though the goal was still eventually to be in a place where I felt comfortable and, like I feel safe to get back out there. But at the time, right after the divorce, I didn't feel like, yeah, I'm ready to go out there and get involved in another relationship. I was like, I have stuff I need to heal from, deal with. And healing doesn't always mean somebody did it to me. Healing can just be the situation itself can be hard. And you look at yourself and, what was my role in the divorce and just all of that. I just wanted to be better as an individual before I got back into a relationship.
Well, okay, so sorry, Kev. Kev and BJ, we go get y'all in. But since he asked a question, right? So I'm gonna ask a question. Because you're also a mental health professional, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I notice a lot is that, and I can only say for women because I talk to more women than men. I see a lot of women who seem to attempt to get healing by dating someone else. And then what ends up instead of allowing themselves to be alone, to, like you said, to grieve the loss, to grieve the disappointment, to feel the emotions, they move on to someone else. And then it ends up being a cycle. Do you see that as well sometimes?
I do. I see it from both. I see men and women. And I think it's just, I don't want to be alone. And the validation of somebody else giving me attention means the other person was probably there, they were the bad person. They were crap, right? And so I don't know if people want to sit in that discomfort of having to be self-reflective and having to feel those emotions. So it's especially when you first start dating somebody, you're all in the clouds, So it's like, oh, this is fun. That didn't work out. Well, let me find somebody else to take me up on the clouds because I don't want to go down there in the valley because it's really not fun down in the valley. So I think most people just don't want to sit in those feelings long.
Okay. All right. So, Kale, we want to give you an opportunity. We'll come back to that, Nitra. We got good questions around that, but we'll come back to that. Kev, so tell us a little bit about your story.
So I came into our relationship as a widower. um, I was married for 8 months, 8 years, 4 months, and 16 days. I was married to Erica Williams, who was one of our beloved partners of the ministry. And she passed away in at the end of 2021 after a battle with cancer. And so I had to go through, of course, like the grieving process. We have a young daughter, and the way that she even came into this world, that's just a testimony. That's a whole nother story right there. Um, but one of the things that I remember just going through with the grieving process and also healing was just asking the question, do I even want to be married again?
Mm.
Right. And do I want to be married again? Am I going to get back out in these dating streets? Even like, am I going to do this God's way? Right.
Right.
But just going through the grieving process and going through the healing process and just determining to God that, okay, God, I do want to be married again. I am going to do it your way. I was allowing God to minister to me. Of course, I was doing the practical things like going to counseling. But once I told God, and this is just part of our story, that yeah, I want to be married again. In my mind, I'm thinking that's maybe 5 years from now. I'm not thinking like I want to be married so desperately or anything like that. I'm thinking, okay, it'll happen one day. I'm in no rush. I'm in a good place. I'm healing. I'm healed, right? And immediately when I told God, okay, I want to be married again, I'm gonna do it your way. He says, have you considered Nitra? I'm like, excuse me, who? Because we knew of each other, but we didn't know each other.
Right.
So she was nowhere on my radar. Of course, I certainly wasn't anywhere on your radar. So the way that God brought us together was God literally presented Nitra to me. And so of course I had to allow myself to even look at her. Just to look at her differently, just in a romantic way. And so eventually, and this is all God, right? So I'm doing the practical things like going to counseling. And when I went to counseling, and even just presented the idea of dating again and dating Nitra, my counselor said, this is good for you. Like you're in a good place. So I had the practical side, but I also had the spiritual side where I allowed God to present Nitra to me. And so I knew I wanted to approach Nitra. Okay, so I'm talking to God. I'm like, okay, what do I do? He said, tell her how you feel. Right. So go ahead and shoot your shot nonetheless. Right. So I wanted to approach her in person. I didn't want to slide in her DMs or do anything kind of like lame like that, like social media stuff. No shots to anybody that does it. No shots to anybody that does it.
All the people in the DM you keep it.
But I'm old school. I'm used to going out. You meet people face to face, person to person. And so I knew she was in Arkansas. I wasn't sure when she was going back to Georgia. She was living in Georgia at the time. And so I was like, okay, I can't talk to her face to face. I'm gonna send her a text. And I said, hey,
good old text.
Good old text. And so I was gonna tell her, I wasn't gonna like shoot my shot via text. I was gonna just tell her. So I said, okay, Nitra, when you get a chance, give me a call. When you get a chance, right? And so
did you just toss me the ball?
Yeah, I tossed you the ball back. This is our story.
Hey, but pause before you tell us what happened with the ball. I want to talk about a couple things, Kev, that you said that I don't want to forget, right? Okay. So one of the things that I heard you say is that you surrounded yourself with a team that let you know you were okay.
Right.
Like I hear you saying, my therapist said to me, right? I also know you talk to some of the guys or whatever, right? So there are people in your life, because I think that that's also a safety mechanism, right? Because I think that what happens for people sometimes, back to Nitra's point, they don't want to be alone. They don't want to be lonely. They want to be validated, right? So they won't go through the process for someone who knows them and works with them professionally and personally to be able to say, yes, I think you're in a good place. So I want to know, you're a man, and they talk a lot about how men don't like counseling and accountability, but I happen to know you got a tribe, a group of guys, and you had a counselor. How did you decide to submit yourself that both a counselor and your tribe could say to you, we think you're ready, or we don't think you're ready?
So when Erica passed, I'm in this position, right, where I had a 6 going on 7-year-old daughter at the time. And so for me, it was I had to be the best version of myself for her. And not just the best version of myself, like for me, according to my standards, but the best version of myself that God's called me to be. Right. And so I had to do the work. Right. So part of grieving, I always think of grieving, I think of it as healing. Right. And so in order to heal, you have to confront. How do you confront? Okay. I have to do the hard things. I have to admit, okay, I'm feeling sad this day. Or I have to talk about things, but I don't necessarily feel like talking about them. I have to go to counseling. That's part of doing the work. And so by doing the work and allowing God to talk to me and doing the practical things by going to counseling, that's how you arrive to this place where, okay, I'm in a good place.
That's good. Now I got a follow-up question for you too. But if you guys are being blessed by this, I need some ones in the comments. I need some fire, some heart, and I need you to tag somebody because this is good. So Kev, how old were you when Erica passed?
I'm 40 now, so I was 39.
So no one expects to be a widow or widower at 39, right?
Right.
You don't have the heartbreak. It's crap, right? What's the process like when you're coming into love again? When you got a good story and that person just has transitioned and they aren't here anymore. What's that like?
Okay. Ask me that question again, just so I can make sure I'm answering the correct way.
So I'm saying, what's it like when your story isn't we broke up, it isn't we grew apart, it is the person I plan to spend life with transition. They left here before I ever expected them to. So I don't have all these horrible stories, but now I'm going to find love again.
Right. And so for me, that's why I think this situation is so unique for me. Because we wouldn't even be in this position. We were even talking about this recently if God had not brought us together. Right. So I had already arrived at this place where I knew, okay, I wanted to get married again. But according to my plan, I wasn't going to be out here in these dating streets till around this time right now. So I had already determined in my heart, no matter how long it took, that okay, I'm open to it and I'm in no rush. So when I'm approaching Nitra, I'm approaching more from like, okay, I'm stepping out on faith. I'm literally just stepping out on faith.
From the unction God had given you.
From the unction that God had given me.
Yeah.
Right. And go ahead, babe.
I was going to ask a question like I'm the host. I'm not.
No, go ahead, babe. Go ahead. Ask your question.
What was the healing process to get you to that place where you were even able to say, like, I'm ready? Besides counseling, but like what was the day-to-day stuff?
So the day-to-day stuff, I would say just doing healthy things, right? So like I said, you have to confront, right? You can't heal what you can't confront from.
Right.
That's just a really big thing. So just part of the grieving process, I would say, just like handling business for my wife. Right. So a lot of people, they put those type of things off. They're just like, because just the very thought of doing those type of things,
the finality of it.
It's just the finality of it. They can't even do it. And it kind of like later on down the line, that's how you end up with all types of finality, because you just put off handling that business. And so for me, doing things like handling my wife's business, right, that allowed me to not only, I would say, confront those feelings, right, but in some sense, I was taking care of her because I'm taking care of her business.
Got you.
Right. Getting back in the gym, doing healthy things, eating right, being around my guys, right, my tribe, my fellas, laughing, just getting back to being me, right. Those things really just kind of, I guess I would say, just bring me to this point of healing where I knew like, okay, I'm in a good place. And then I confirmed that on the practical side, when you're going to therapy, and your therapist is saying, okay, you're in a good place because you're doing these things, you're doing the work. So it's allowing God to minister to me like, hey, do this, give this way, do this, live your life this way. And then I'm also combining that with the work of therapy.
Oh, I love this. Now we got to bring BJ in because as soon as we get BJ's, then I got a question for all three of you guys. Okay. So BJ, come to the table and just give us your story and catch us up. So we got all the players involved so we can really do some deep questions.
All right. So I'm I've been divorced. I got divorced roughly almost 9 years ago, back in 2014. And so I'm one of those people that hop right back into it, quick, fast, and in a hurry. And I can explain to y'all why I did that in a little while. But I've been happily married for the last 8 years, and it's funny because the first time we got together back in February, and y'all actually met Lindsay, y'all was like, man, it's actually been 8 years, man. I mean, it's been a developing 8 years, but it's been a great 8 years, and so that's pretty much my story. I didn't waste any time, but there was a reason why I didn't waste any time hopping right back into it.
Well, go ahead and talk about that a
Go
little
ahead and
bit.
tell us your reasons. Out here now.
Okay.
Go ahead. Wait a minute. He hopped back into it. I want to hop back into it. What did he do?
Well, because my story is definitely a little bit different, and a lot of people who were around the story at the time may not have realized that I was actually separated for 6 months before I jumped back into it. So it may have looked like I hurried along, but I really didn't hurry along. And so because she was completely out of the house, she was gone. And through that 6-month period is really when I went through my grieving process, through my metamorphosis, I guess you should say, for me to get to the point of letting go. And my big thing, as I talk to counseling, because I did go through therapy as well, as I talk to my tribe, as I talk to my guys, as I talk to my leadership, my pastors, my spiritual parents, I had to get to the point of learning how to let go. And when I was able to let go, that's when I was able to move on. But I wasn't able to move on until I let go. And so I did all of that through the course of 6 months. And then supernaturally, pretty much, is when after I decided to let go, that's when things radically shifted for me. And I was able to move on and get into the next relationship and heal completely and move on and go on and do what I'm doing right now and enjoy my marriage.
First, look, can we shout out men who do therapy? Can we shout out men who do therapy? Okay. Let's shout out men who do therapy. Okay. But what I hear both of you guys saying is that as I submitted to 2 things, 3 things really. Obviously, I submit to God, because if I don't submit to God, I'm not submitting to nobody else. Okay. Right. I submit to God. I submit to a professional, but I submit to my community, right? I submit to my community. Now, BJ, you know I got to make a dig, because what you said is your tribe, but you really mean the guys, because you ain't really let us be no part of it, which we worked out in February, but I'm not finna let you.
We ain't gonna go there, are we?
No, we're not finna do we're not finna do no revisionist history.
But that was before we moved. That was before I moved, though.
Oh, okay. But I want to shout you guys both out for that. I know Pastor Edwin has done therapy. I want to shout out men who do therapy and are bold enough to admit that they do therapy, because it doesn't make you weak to admit that you need help. It makes you weak to try to manage what you don't have the ability to manage by yourself.
And you know, I heard you say something that I think kind of gets us into, and I know you got a question for everybody, but I heard you say, BJ, you know, you talked about this idea of letting go. And I think regardless to whether it's just a bad breakup, whether it's a divorce, whether you lose someone, sometimes people have a hard time of letting go. And if you don't let go, you can't move to the next. And I think that that's what a lot of people, the people I talk to, I talk to people who in some cases have convinced themselves that they don't want love because they are terrified they won't find it. And as a result, they've convinced themselves that and don't get me wrong, if you're single and you're happy, I think that's great. But there are some people who say they're happy and they're really not happy. They're really not happy. And how do I know? Because when someone else gets somebody, they start to say things like, well, I ain't got nobody. Well, you just said you were happy by yourself. So how are you happy by yourself? But you mad because somebody got somebody. And so I think people have to learn to really be self-reflective and go, you know, have I let go? And I know that lots of people I haven't been divorced, not because I couldn't have been, but she just held on to a brother. But the truth of it is that people talk about divorce or loss or breakups, that it is, and both of you guys have said it, like a grieving process, right? So I guess my question for you is like, what would you tell somebody? I know we've talked about the healthy things Kev talked about, and I know we've had some supernatural things happen in both of your lives that reconnected you or connected you with people. But what would you tell somebody they should be doing if they say, I realize I haven't let go? I heard BJ said that, and I'm still living this story of how did this happen to me? Why did this happen to me? What would you say to them for how would they begin to work to get over that or get through that?
One of the things that began to help me realize that is because I started to become a totally different person. I was still holding on to what I thought I should have been holding on to, and I began to change and be the person that I didn't want to be. And so ultimately in your heart, you know exactly who you want to be. And if you're not careful and if you don't let go, the thing that you're holding on to will cause you to become a totally different individual. And again, I'm going to shout out my tribe again. When they began to help me identify that I was becoming a totally different person, I wasn't love walk anymore. I was becoming angry. I was becoming all of these different kind of people. I was like, man, I really need to do something different. And that's when I began to realize that the reason why I was doing that was because I hadn't let go yet. I was still trying to hold on to something I wasn't supposed to be holding on to. And that can go for anything, but for me specifically, and what we're talking about is just that letting go part. And so for me, when I realized that, and you got to realize that if you don't let go, you're going to begin to change and become somebody totally different, or somebody that you may not want to be. And so you need to do the inner work. Look at yourself and say, hey, is this who I really want to be? Because you can always find yourself angry. You can find yourself depressed. Because I can tell you, once I let go, that depression began to leave. That anger began to leave because I started looking at the hope of what could become once I let that go. But as long as I held on to that, that's all I could see. And so I would say to somebody, look at who you're becoming. Look at how you're looking at things, because there may be a reason why you're doing that. And it may be because you haven't let go yet.
That's really good because, and I won't bring up all our business, but I remember sitting in a barbecue space one time. We was like, wait a minute now, Love Walk. this ain't who you are. So shout out to you for the transparency.
Well,
All right.
I want to throw this in too, because I think that what you're saying also applies to, because we did find love again. We just found it with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reality
5 different times so
five
far.
different times.
Marriage 5.0.
Marriage 5. In fact, y'all don't know this, but after the last Relationships 101, we upgraded from 4.5 to 5.0 because we was like, here's some things we can do better here. But I think you guys are saying something important, because you have to let go of what you thought it would be in order to find what can be.
That's why I love when he said the hope of what could be.
Yeah,
yes.
You have to let go. And if you don't let go, right? If you don't let go, then what you end up becoming is a sad, bitter, depressed person, because you can't change the past. Yeah. So we had to decide that we wanted to build a new future together. Yeah. You guys had to each decide we're willing to build a new future with someone else. But the reality of it is that if I don't let go, I am going to become somebody I don't want to become, and I can do it without ever realizing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would just say too, in terms of my situation, it was 2 things that really helped me out. Number one, so even when I was married to Erica, and even when she was going through everything as far as like cancer treatment, right? I determined in my heart, no matter what the outcome is, I wouldn't get mad at God.
Yeah.
And so once I determined in my heart, no matter what happens, I'm not going to get mad at God. That sets me up. So after she does pass away, my heart is in a place where I'm not mad at God.
Yeah.
That's right? Good.
The second thing is that it's okay not to have all the answers.
Yeah.
That's good.
So a lot of times we'll sit around, and especially with the loss of a loved one, and you're wondering why did it happen? Or maybe if I did it this way. It's okay. Some things you just might not find out or understand or know until you get to heaven. So it's okay. And so once I was at peace with those 2 things, that just kind of like, it just fast tracks the healing.
Oh, that's so
good.
That is
so good.
So good.
Because so many people are angry at God.
Mhm.
You know, it's like, well, God, why would you let them treat me like this? Or why would you let this happen? You know, and what it does, some of the people I've talked to, that very thing causes them to have distrust of anybody in the future. And so I'm just curious, you know, you talked about that, but I'm curious from any of y'all, like, what are some things that you did to safeguard your heart so that you could trust again? Because I hear so many people talk about how they won't trust again.
Can I ask a
Yeah.
question
Oh,
before
yes.
that? Because
Yes.
here's a question I want to ask that I think Kev set us up for. Okay. I want to talk about the moments when you felt angry that you didn't get what you thought you were going to get. Because Kev, you say I wasn't mad at God, but I don't know. There still may have been moments that you were like, we were supposed to raise this baby together, and now you aren't here. Nitra, BJ, you both said, hey, I tried to do things the way God told me to do them, and it looks like I got that was a flop. Because I think a lot of times people don't address their anger, and then at some point it does become depression, because I won't admit I'm mad, not even at God, but I'm mad that this situation doesn't look like what I thought it was going to look like. So did anybody feel any anger I love that Kevin said grief is healing. Did anybody feel any anger in their healing process? Well, BJ, you already told us that you did, so you say.
I did. I felt anger, but I had people to call to talk through that anger. Like, I didn't try to keep all that inside. I would talk through it, but I also had people that wouldn't just let me like get stuck in an angry place. It was like, okay, you know, and I remember walking through it, I called my friend Shayla and I go, okay, so today I can only talk about this for like this amount of time. Like, I need to get this out. But after that, we stop in this conversation. We're going to talk about flowers or whatever else. Like, I allow myself to talk about it and to go through that healing process, but I wouldn't allow myself to stay stuck in that angry place. So that was part of it for me.
I would say for me, it's acknowledging the feeling, but I'm not going to live here in this feeling.
That's good.
Right. So I can acknowledge, okay, I'm sad in this moment. Or even when Erica was going through treatment, just you feel the helplessness of not really being able to do anything yourself. Right. Or you might be thinking, okay, God wouldn't put us in this position for her to be taken away, and now I got to be a single parent. Right. So these are the things that I'm thinking about beforehand. But you know, stay stuck in that place. Like I said, I still had to like, okay, no matter what happens, I'm not going to be mad or upset at God about it.
Right.
So it's acknowledging the feeling. So even after Erica passed away, I'm sad in this moment, but I'm not going to stay sad in this moment. It's acknowledging the feeling, but then not allowing yourself, like you always teach about the think and feeling cycle. Okay, I'm sad. I'm not going to live here. I'm angry. I'm not going to live here. Let me get up and do some healthy things, right? To kind of recycle those feelings.
I think that's really good. I think everybody should put in the comments, it's okay to acknowledge the feeling. We just don't stay there. Like, you have to acknowledge it, but you don't stay there.
And if you are watching this broadcast and this is resonating with you and you're like, you know what, I do still feel some kind of anger. I do still feel some kind of angst. I have let this change me. What are some things that they can do then tonight to go, you know what, I want to break that cycle? What are some? I'm asking anybody because the whole purpose of this broadcast is to help people, right? So if someone hears that and they go, you know what, I wasn't able to articulate it, but I'm feeling like what he described is what I'm feeling like. I'm upset. Maybe I never even realized I was mad at God. Maybe I didn't realize I was angry that this didn't work out. Maybe I'm angry that I gave my heart to somebody and I did it God's way, and then they betrayed me and did this to me. What do they do with that anger? What would you tell them to do?
Well, I think one of the easiest things, and then I'll toss it to Nitra back to Nitra, is that one of the things that I teach my clients to do a lot is something called writing a letter. And I think it's something very healthy about getting all of the feelings out. And I encourage people to just sit down and without a filter, write the letter. Write the letter. I thought we was going to be together forever. I thought this was the future. I can't believe blah, 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 blah. And then I tell people to wait 7 days and come back and read the letter. you should see some of those emotions coming out, right? And then I tell people, people are different. So it may take some people may do it in one reading, some people may do it in 30 readings, right? But there should come a point where when you read the letter, it no longer feels personal. It feels like you're watching a movie.
Because you've gotten it out.
Because you've gotten it out.
So you're not sending the letter.
We're not, it's nobody sending.
I just want to be clear. I just want to be clear.
Because when we get to that,
I want to be clear.
when we get to that point, what we're going to do is burn the letter. And that burning the letter is how we're going to step out, right?
Because I think some people write the letter, but they send
Don't
it.
send the letter. Don't send the letter. Don't send the letter. But it's one of the ways that I know that if people will stop filtering and just get all of the emotions out and then come back and work through them, and then you burn it. And then to me, that burning it is like the saying of saying, I'm leaving this behind. I'm willing to move forward, but I'm tossing it to somebody who's a whole professional.
No, I think that's good. And I also have clients to write letters as well. I think, like I said, I'm not a writer. Like I tell people, if journaling is your thing or writing is your thing, get it out that way. I'm a talker. So I literally would call, and I had 3 people, and the first person would get the most raw version. The second person would get a little more, okay, I got it all out then. Like I was like, I don't care if they get hit by a truck. I don't care. Like that person gets that version. The second person goes, trucks are that's a harsh one, like, and we worked through it. By the third time, I was like, okay. And this is not just one time. This was over several times if I'm triggered or whatever. But that third person that I'm talking to, I'm actually pretty rational. I'm making logical statements. It's not just emotionally driven, all this anger coming out. I'm saying, well, I understand this perspective. I see this, but I had to get it out, which is what you're saying through the letter. Is just, so I tell people you can't keep it inside, because in our minds, and we say this all the time, all that craziness makes sense up here. Or to us, it makes sense. But when you start speaking it out loud or writing it down, you start to hear it and see it, and you go, that's a little extreme. Or maybe that's not balanced. That's, all of those things. And so definitely finding a safe place where you're allowed to process it and process it in a way that doesn't just fuel your anger, but actually lets you get it out and figure out which way to move after that in a healthy way.
That's good.
That's good. So one of the questions that I had so many questions I wanted to ask, because people tend to ask me certain questions, and to be honest, I don't necessarily have the lived experiences in some of these capacities to help them. I can give them godly wisdom, but I don't necessarily have the lived experience. And so one of the questions that I get sometimes from people is about, what happens to their self-esteem after they've gone through like a hard breakup or a divorce, right? I know, because I know both BJ and Nitra, that neither one of you ever got married with the intention of getting a divorce, right? But it happens. Did your self-esteem take a hit at all? And if so, or if not, what did you do to make sure that it didn't? And if it did, what did you do to rebuild it and to maintain it so that when you entered into the next relationship, you weren't taking a broken piece of you with you?
Self-esteem or confidence, because you actually wrote it to say confidence, right? Because you can have high self-esteem and low confidence.
Yes.
So what do you guys think about that?
Because there are people out there who are feeling this way. I'm asking the questions not really because y'all feel that way, because I know y'all, but I'm asking it to say so you can give your wisdom and insight to other people.
Sure. Yeah, definitely my self-esteem took a hit. And a lot of it for me came from what I thought other people thought. Because of the individual that I was and me waiting as long as I did to get married. I wasn't one of those people that just hopped into marriage haphazardly or whatever quickly. I wasn't that individual. I always took the time. I wanted to get somebody who I thought who was strong in the word, who believed what I believe, all of those different kinds of things. And so the first part of me going through the grieving process had a lot to do with how I thought people looked at me. And so due to that, my self-confidence took a hit, my supposed identity took a hit. And I had to realize that that with all of that going on, I couldn't remain there. I couldn't be in that place, because if I did, I wasn't going to ever get to the place that I knew I wanted to get to. So for me, I definitely had to stop looking at that. I had to stop looking at how other people thought about me, and I had to look at who God made me. And again, I go back to how I explained that if I didn't let go, I was going to continue to become an individual that I didn't want to be, and never who I was. I was going to end up being an angry individual. I was going to end up being a spiteful individual. I was always going to be asking the question, why? Because I didn't do nothing to you. Why you do this to me, kind of deal. And so I didn't. So I had to let all of that go and stop having the idea or worried about what other people thought, because at the end of the day, nobody is going to know your whole story anyway. So people going to think what they want to think anyway. So I had to let all of that go. And I had to start building that back up by realizing it again, going back to the tribe. Man, there are people there are people out there that will love you the way you need to be loved. I think that was one of our conversations, Dad. I think you said that to me specifically.
Yeah.
There is a woman out there that will love you the way you need to be loved. And praise God, that happened for me quick, fast, and in a hurry. And so, but again, if I didn't let go, I wouldn't have been able to begin to rebuild that self-esteem. And again, that self-esteem wasn't built. I'm saying again, but I haven't said this. That self-esteem wasn't built because I got into the relationship again. That self-esteem was built throughout that grieving process. And when I let go and when I allowed God to change me and get back on track to who I really was.
You know, it's funny because I talk to people and I heard people have said to me before, they go like, sometimes they'll say, well, that's easy for you and Pastor Sean because you found the love of your life and you with them forever. And I was like, but you understand that I don't even prescribe to the idea that there's only one person for one person.
There is only for you. Only for you. Yeah, I don't know nothing about I don't know what you about to say
I
here.
knew I was trying to.
No,
I know. Listen, I'm trying
Can
to
y'all
help
invite somebody else on here? Because listen, I don't know what he's talking about. It's other people for y'all. It ain't nobody else for him. Okay, all right. Go
My
ahead.
point is because I don't prescribe to the idea that not to hit me. I don't prescribe to the idea that there's just one person for me. What I mean by that is that we serve a God who has the ability to give us what we need. Yeah. I thank God that he gave me Pastor Sean, right? But if I had blown it, if I had messed it up and she had walked it away, I wasn't, even then, I wasn't a person who said, oh my God, that's the only person on this entire planet, you know, of all these billions of people who I could build a life with. And that's what I was saying to you when we were talking about it. I feel you looking at me. And that's what I was saying. There's a person out there who will love you the way God intended to. You just have to keep your heart open and remain open to it.
It's a person for all of y'all.
For all of y'all.
For all of y'all. No, it's a person for all of y'all. For all of y'all.
Babe. Wow.
But for us, this is it. No, this is it.
Wow.
This is it. No, I understand what you're saying, though. You know, for these people, I understand that.
That's who we talking to. These
people right here. Right. Yes. There's so something I can say, but go ahead, Nitra. Say one of y'all say something productive.
Please say something.
So I was gonna say, y'all hilarious first.
Right.
I think a lot of my story is similar to BJ as far as that self-esteem, the confidence. Yes, all of that. It took a hit. All that. Bam. I actually remember at the end of my marriage talking to you, Dad, and I asked a question and I said something like, is that too much to ask or something? And you said something to me that really kind of helped me to remember who I was. And you said, now the Nitra I know wouldn't even ask that question. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you sure right. Like,
it's like, who is this lady, Hoppo?
It's this uncircumcised Philistine talking crazy. Like, I remember, like, you're right. I'm not asking for too much. Like, this is not who I am. This is not who God created me to be. And I remember, again, even after that, making the decision, the divorce is the right decision for us and all of that. It was difficult. Like BJ said, the concern about the image and all of those things. But at some point you spend enough time with God. Mm-hmm. And I know we're talking about practical steps, but practically you spend time with God and allow him to just talk to you and say, you know, that's not this and that's not you. And this part came from this. And just to start telling you again or reminding you of who you are, or telling you for the first time maybe that you've heard it through, this experience, and just allowing God really to give that confidence back to you. Now, for me, one big thing that affected me was it affected how my confidence and my ability to hear from God about relationships. So I did not feel like I lost the ability to hear God about other things, but I was like, I messed up pretty bad that first time, so maybe I don't know what I'm doing in this area. So I was pretty terrified of I was like, God. And then even after I started dating again, I remember, oh, this is funny. I remember bringing somebody and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to try again, right? I was like, okay, bringing them to the ministry real soon. I brought that joke to the church and Pastor Sean was like, So, but what does that do to my confidence? I'm like, I'm still not able to hear God.
Girl, no, but here's the thing. So one of the questions that Pastor Edwin has in the notes is about, like, how do you know when you're ready, right? But here are some things I've heard from you guys. You guys have said, number one, I got accountability in my life. Number two should be number one. I spent time with God. What I hear the three of you saying is where I see other people mess up. I didn't try to get a euphoric high by adding a new person. I went to God to reestablish my identity. And then I had a tribe of people that was clear about what kind of relationship I wanted. And they helped me, right? And so the reason I was able to say no so quickly is that we have been talking. And I was like, yeah, he nice, but that's not what you've been talking about. Because if you remember, one of your things was that you didn't want to live in Arkansas for the rest of your life. And this person was committed to living in Arkansas. And I'm like, don't do it. But in every one of y'all situations, you let people come in and say, yes, no, this is not a good idea, right? How do you get vulnerable enough that you are willing as an adult to let other people tell you, hey, pump your brakes, you're not ready for this?
Because a lot of people will be like, well, you just don't want me to have nobody. You got somebody and you don't want me to have somebody. And then they go out there
and get their tail toe out the seam.
And then they have to come back. And then that just, what you said, Nitra, it then intensifies that thought of, oh my God, I can't even hear from God. My picker is broke, right?
That's what came to me.
I think it was a humbling experience because it was like, no, I can't. That's why I'm allowing grown people to tell me, because clearly I, need some help in this area, and that's okay because what I want is healthy. I don't want just somebody.
That's good. I want.
I would rather
want is healthy
and have a healthy relationship than to say I did it by myself and then I'm in the house crying and stuck in a corner rocking. I just rather somebody else help me.
Yeah.
So if what you want is healthy, put a 7 in the comment. Like, what I want is healthy. And if that means somebody needs to help me, I am open for help, right? And I always say this as a pastor. I don't have any interest in telling people what to do.
Nope.
I really don't. I don't have no interest in telling people what to do. Nope. But this is the thing I ask you to consider. If you're not going to let us know until you already down through there, because you were so grown that you could pick by yourself. And now we got to be the ones on the phone till midnight because you crying yourself to sleep. Could you just bring us to the party early? And I see so many people who want to be so grown,
oh Lord,
that nobody can tell them anything. But then when depression is trying to take them off the table, when they got to drink a glass of wine every night or a bottle to go to bed, then now it's like, I want somebody to help me. How come we can't just get help on the front end? Like, we got help for our marriage before we filed divorce papers. That's why we didn't have to file divorce papers. We were willing to do it. So could y'all speak just a little bit more about putting down that pride as adults and being like, let somebody in instead of picking stupid by yourself?
Well, it's
That's
just
the only
about
thing. Oh,
go,
go ahead.
it's just about humbling yourself,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right? So I remember even talking to Dad, I was talking to Pastor Edwin, Pastor Son. So once we started dating, I knew that I'd heard God concerning Nitra, right? So we hit it off, and I'm like, okay, I need to talk to somebody because we really hitting it off. So I remember reaching out to Pastor Edwin. I'm like, okay, me and Nitra, we're talking, and I believe I heard God say this. If he had said, "Nah, you tripping, Kev," all right, well, that's it. And then even after Pastor Edwin confirmed, I talked to Pastor Son. So if either one of you at any time had said, "Nah, Kev, this ain't it," I'm submitted to you guys because I'm trusting that you're seeing my blind spots, right?
Yeah.
And even with that, if at any time just going to counseling, then my therapist has said, I don't think you're ready for it. Okay, let's take a step back.
Yeah.
So it's just being humble enough. Are you humble enough to want a healthy relationship?
Ooh,
That's a good question.
are you humble
yeah. Oh,
enough
yeah.
To want a healthy
to want
relationship.
a healthy
That's
relationship?
good.
That's
Or do
good.
you
Yeah.
want a filtered relationship?
Because I can get out there and mess it up on my own.
Right. Well, and that's, and you know, and that's one of the things that you were committed to. We talked about that. You was
Right.
like, look, I understand. I'm young. You know, I'm a good looking guy. I know what's out there. I know the direction I could go, but I'm not committed to living that way. I got a young daughter who I want to be an example for, and I don't want to disappoint God. And so there's a certain way I want to do this. And I think because of that humbleness, I think because of your willingness to do it God's way, that's the reason you were even able to hear God when he said, have you considered this? You know, and I said all the time, God doesn't force us into things, but he does present things to us. And we have to be humble enough to explore those opportunities that God gives us. But then also, like you said, be humble enough to know that, hey, I could have some blind spots, and I got to have people in my life who I trust enough, you know, who can help me see the blind spots rather than me getting mad every time they tell me, yo, it's a truck on your blind spot. No, I'm getting over anyway. And then you end up crashing, you know?
Let me ask this. This is particularly for Nitra and BJ, okay? Because I know you personally, okay? You guys are both really big optimists, right? And you're people of faith. As you look back, because I know that, like, as you guys were both grieving, right? There were a lot of really brutal, honest, transparent conversations, right? Did your optimism cause you to overlook red flags? Did you overlook things because you thought
it's the face for me, man.
Okay, Nitra, we'll tag you in. Did optimism, did you confuse optimism with faith? Did you overlook something that to walk us through that part?
Yes.
It's hindsight 2020, right?
So I think because I do have a strong tribe, and if people don't know, these my tribe, this is my right here, right, with a couple of other people. I always assumed, number one, I thought I heard God first of all, right? But then I kept going. I was like, if we're surrounded by good people, so if we have problems, we'll be able to like get good godly wisdom, follow through with that. And like I felt like I was safe because I had people surround me, kind of insulating us. I was like, hey, we're not gonna have people speaking into our life that's trash advice givers. We're gonna have some good people, but everybody has to be open to receiving that feedback and that advice. And again, we have to be humble enough to say, hey, we're having a problem. What's your feedback? Implementing that feedback. And so I think my optimism did cause me to believe, because I have good people around me, that we would have the tools and the support system to make it through those things.
Mm-hmm. Likewise, I mean, you know, I came into the situation where, you know, I came to the situation where everything had been established. The tribe was already there. I was coming in, learning. You know, all of that was already established. So I'm sitting here just like Nitra, like, man, she's already connected. She's already doing this. She's already doing that. And so for me, I felt security, I felt safety in doing that. If we ever had any issues, she's already submitted. All I got to do is get submitted and continuously stay submitted. So if that's already there, what I got to worry about? I'm going into this thing, you know, I'm going into a guns blazing. I ain't got nothing to worry about. The issue, if anybody got issues, it's probably gonna fall on me. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm just coming around, and it just didn't happen that way. Everything changed up, and so because everything changed up, that optimism that I had and the faith that I had, it overshadowed it. And one of the things that I had to learn through that process is understanding what God said versus what God is saying.
Talk about that.
So, because I had to understand that it wasn't the matter that God didn't tell me initially, this is what I should have done. I had to understand that because we have free will and people can still make choices, that's one of the things that I had to incorporate in my understanding. Because what I didn't understand, I had grown up so much in faith, and I developed to such a point to where if I'm gonna say I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna stick to it and I'm gonna do it. But I had to learn that ain't everybody, and I had to rethink my whole process that ain't who I married. Also, I had to come to realize that, because if that wasn't the case, I wouldn't be going through this. And so I had to begin to understand what God was saying as I was going through this process, so that I could begin to start that process of doing everything that I did, so that I can become healthy, so that I can get back to who I was. Because if I stuck with what God had said way back in 2008, I would have still been stuck right now. And so I had to understand what God was saying to me in the moment and what was going on, and assessing the current situation and hear God through that versus hearing God through what was originally established at the beginning of the relationship. And so because I began to understand that, understanding what God was saying, I was able to adjust and get out of that optimism and really get in faith and follow what God was saying at that moment, because I can't operate in faith if I'm not following what God is saying
In that moment.
Yeah, and that's the reason that sometimes I push back and I challenge when I hear people say, "Well, I must have missed God," because it doesn't mean that you missed God. Right. You can absolutely have heard God that says this is the person you're supposed to marry. God can absolutely do that. But just like God doesn't force us to be saved, neither does he force another person to be the person they said they were. People change. And so that's why we stress, and you said it so beautifully, it's about hearing what God said, but also hearing what God is saying. And you can be confident in hearing, this is what God told me to do. I did it. Now the other person has free will, and the person decides they want to wild out and become a different person, you know, and things happen, and then I'm not with that person. It's not that I miss God. In fact, I heard God, because he told me to move on. He told me to do something different. He told me to do something new. And so that's why sometimes I push back when people say I must have missed God, because sometimes you miss God, but not all the time.
So I think that's so good. And I think sometimes the anger is that in reality, we want God to take somebody's free will away to give us the outcome that we want.
Yeah.
They're really you're angry because God won't make somebody, even though God doesn't make us.
Yes.
And I was just thinking about this because I was talking to a friend today about her daughter. And she was saying that her daughter was married, and that when they first had an issue, the Lord said to her, if he will submit, we can turn this around, right? And then he got physically aggressive toward her. And the Lord said, if you don't leave, he is going to kill you.
See,
you better hear
what he is saying.
Right.
You better hear that, right? Because how many people have stayed in marriages and been mistreated and abused and all of these different things? Some of them even physically lost their life because it was like, this is what God said in the beginning. But the reality of it is that people have a right to change their mind, and anyone can decide this works because we both choose to obey God.
Yeah.
If one of us chooses not to obey God, surely there would be a grace period where the Lord would say, yeah, I want you to pray for Sean, and when I want you to stand. But at some point, the Lord is going to be like, listen, this is dangerous for you. This is unhealthy for you. This is going to end you up in suicide or depression or all of these different things. You just can't force people to be who they aren't committed to being.
You just can't come home and decide you're gonna be a furry. I mean, I'm gonna pray for you at first and lay hands
I
on you.
can't do this with you tonight. I can't do this with you
And
tonight.
I'm gonna be praying for you. It's gonna be a grace period, but at some point, I'll be like, you know what? I didn't marry no furry. I married a person. You got to be a person.
Not a Furby.
I don't even no, but the reality of it is that covenant is based on conditions.
Right.
Covenant is only unconditional covenant is God and the things that he promises, like the rainbow, right? So if we get together with the provision, hey, we're gonna be together, and this is what our marriage is gonna look like, and then he goes, you know what? I don't think I'm ever gonna work again, and what I'm gonna do is play video games all day, and I just want to be on the piano. Oh, baby, that's not the covenant I agreed to, right? I agreed to. And so I think it's so important that if we're going to have healthy relationships, because I'm going to say this to both of y'all, and hey, Lindsay, because I see you in the comments, I know you're watching, but I want to say that did the previous relationships really make you hash out these new covenants that you're working with? Did what you learned before say, let me not assume this, let me be clear that this is really who you are and what you're committed to doing? Did you have different conversations because of your previous relationship?
100%.
Yeah, I'll say what you just said to me.
100%.
Dietra asked a lot of questions.
Baby, we got questions.
Give me a DNA sample while you at it.
Oh, wow.
I had questions, and I also looked at, again, I tried to be really self-reflective after my divorce. What was my role in how that relationship turned out? And so, like, I also went to therapy, and looking at, okay, so here's the feedback I've gotten. Here's the areas of my life where I could have done that differently. I learned from these things. What did I need that I didn't get, that I overlooked because of optimism the last time? I got questions, baby. And so, yeah, I was definitely not as, I guess, naive going into this marriage, but also I think the healing part was just like, God was like, you can trust me, and you do know what I sound like, and you can hear me. And so just building that confidence back up, it was huge as well.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. It definitely caused me to go into this totally differently, and from the standpoint of understanding that free will part, because I think I took a lot of security in the fact that, again, somebody thought like I thought, and so that this would never happen to me. And so what I had to begin to realize was the reality of it is it can happen to you. So even going into my new marriage, I had to realize that she could make a decision to, at some point, do something different. But the beautiful thing about marriage is this: when it's done right, you wake up and you choose it every day. You wake up and you choose it every day. And when you do that, it can be so much more fulfilling. It can be so much better. And that's what we do every single day. We wake up choosing each other every single day, rather than me resting on laurels and not necessarily being intentional with making sure the relationship is okay, and not and missing the red flags and all these other different kinds of things. So yeah, definitely all of those things that I went through previously caused me to look at things a whole lot differently now. But again, the beautiful thing is waking up, choosing each other every day. And again, not just saying, hey, this person ain't gonna never leave me. Why would they leave me? Because they can. And if they choose to, they can. And so with me understanding that, and her still choosing me every single day, makes it all the more beautiful to me.
That's good. I like that.
I love that.
So I'll say something too, because I didn't get married right away. So I had, if you want to call it dating, I was every now and then go out with somebody. And I got to a point, especially at the end, the first date, I was telling the tribe, hey, I'm going out to eat today. I'll let y'all know. Like, I was reporting play by play, but that started to shape for me to say what I want and what I don't want. Like, when you go on a date and you're talking to somebody and you're like, yeah, this is not what I want. Okay. oh, I'm going to try. No, that's not what I want either. Or I did actually like this about this person. That's important to me. I didn't realize that was that important. So like that process, I think helped me to be really clear about my expectations.
Now you're the only person here who dated, okay? You know, these other two cats, they just got a word from the Lord and got married. But you dated. Now
Right up in there.
and I actually like that because as a woman, right? What advice would you give to women who are dating?
Don't start planning a wedding on the first date. Just date to get to know someone and go in. I told Kevin this the other day. I said my mindset was always go with your eyes wide open, but not necessarily a magnifying glass. Meaning I'm not there to pick apart everything that, oh, that's a red flag. He ordered dessert. You know what that means? No, it just means he wanted dessert. That's all that means. But also, if he's sitting there and the whole time we're having a conversation, he's texting his ex, I'm also not going to pretend like I didn't see that, So I tried to keep an open mind, but also be somewhat open to the process. Now I say somewhat because that was probably my biggest thing. I kept getting the feedback from people I dated that I was extremely guarded. So that was something I went
Right
to.
one, baby.
Huh?
It had to be the right one because you're not guarded now. You be grinning and all kind of stuff.
Grinning, baby. Listen. No, but what my therapist helped me to understand was I said, all these guys keep telling me that I'm guarded and I don't want to be guarded. And as she walked me through the process, she said, you were guarded with so-and-so and what happened? And I talk about basically why it didn't work out. She said, you were guarded with so-and-so and what happened? Well, she said, so it sounds like you're guarded because when it doesn't feel safe, your body, your mind tells you it's not safe. And so you put up a guard. And I went, oh, so what I've been thinking is me not being confident in hearing was actually me actually being aware that it's safe. And so there's a reason I have those guards up. With Kevin, I'll tell you, even it's funny because when I called my ex-husband, I said, hey, this is getting serious and we have a child. So we had those conversations and he was like, whoa, okay. Something about being like it going pretty fast. And I said, I'm not guarded. He was like, oh, that must be the one then. Like he literally was like, and so when you start, for me, I felt really safe with Kevin. I won't say from the beginning, but yeah, pretty much. I knew he was a good guy in general. I didn't know him well, but I was like, Kev is a good guy. But we started talking and he would say, I'm going to do this. And literally he would do it. So like all of those things started to feel safe. And I was like, oh, he doesn't lie. That feels safe. He does what he says he's going to do. That feels safe. That, like, I'm serious and y'all laughing, but it comes down. And I know people are here. When you start having safe feelings, your guards are down because it's safe enough to be, you don't have to be guarded.
So I want to tell you this, and we probably never had this conversation, but your ability to keep your guard up is actually indication that you are healthier than you think you are.
Well, that's what I learned.
When I used to work at Rape Crisis, one of the things that we learned is that women are taught to ignore their internal safety mechanisms. And it starts with just something as simple as being forced to hug somebody as a kid that you don't want to hug. And so what begins to happen for women is that women, and a lot of you women, if you should really listen to Nitra and not be bitter and not have a magnifying glass, but you should pay attention to that feeling of safety because God created women to know when they are safe with a man. And so one of the things that we learned in when I worked at Rape Crisis is that most women who are sexually assaulted by someone that they know. And the research says that in most cases, there was a moment where the woman said, he is not safe, but somebody said, but he's so nice, but he has a good job, but he likes you so much. And I want to encourage women that if you want to find love, you don't have to live behind Fort Knox, but you should not ignore the part of you that says this doesn't feel right and I don't feel safe. And I'll tell this story about Pastor Edwin. It's one of the reasons I knew I would marry him. It was on our first real date. We are in college. I have come to Conway, and there is a party at the skating rink hosted by the bros. There ends up being a shooting outside. And I have friends that are there, like guys I'm really good friends with. And he comes to me and he says, follow me out. I'll get you out. And even as I was following him, I was thinking, I don't know him well enough to be following him, but I felt safe enough to follow him out, and he got me out. And that's one of the things that's always been for me, is feeling safe with him. And I think if you don't feel safe with a man, I don't know what you men gonna say about how men ought to feel, but if you don't feel safe with a man, that is the indication that ain't your man, sis.
Well, and I knew that I wanted to marry you that night because I was thinking, why am I going back into a place where they shooting? Girl, I barely know. I need to be going the opposite direction. These fools are shooting. But here I am looking for you. I'm like, I need to make sure she's safe. I'm like, what is happening? So we both had a revelation that night.
Bullets to do that.
You know,
Yeah.
one of the questions that I was going to ask, because I wanted to put it out there, and it's really for Kevin Nitra. Both of you had young daughters, right? Can you talk to people about how y'all navigated even meeting each of them? And then as things got more serious, what kind of conversations did you have because blended families don't always work, right? Sometimes with the best of intentions, they don't always work. And you guys seem to be managing it very well. I know there's been some times it maybe some different things, but it seems over time that you guys did a really good job of meshing that. And I hear them referring to each other as sisters and stuff now. So just talk a little bit about what your thought process was and how you navigate that, because there are people out there who may have, single fathers, single mothers, and part of their concern, and it should be, is the person I decide to spend my life with. I need to make sure they're going to be safe around my kids, and we need to have kind of the same kind of idea and thinking about what involves these kids, education and discipline, and all those things. So how'd you do that?
Okay, I'll go first. So I'll start before Kevin. People didn't meet Brielle, really. It was very, I think we were talking maybe one guy, one or two guys met Brielle, because unless I think we're about to really be serious, you don't have any reason for my child to get connected to you. You don't have any reason to. Yeah, I just didn't play about you. Oh yeah, we're going on the third date. Come meet my kid. Nope. You have no reason to meet my kid. I don't even know if I like you that much.
Right.
I had to really kind of think, oh, this is something that could be something for them to meet her, number one. And then with Kevin, they actually met each other before we started dating. So she met Kevin and Faith under the circumstances of went to church together. I think Easter was the first time, two years ago,
Mm-hmm.
Easter. So they hit it off. Like Faith and Bree were immediately hit it off very well. And then she met Kevin at my nephew's birthday party, and it was just really cool. But when I told her, Kevin and I started talking, and when we knew, which was super fast, we knew we were gonna get married and all that stuff. I was like, my kid need to listen to the Ed Talk from today, and she doesn't always like a lot of change. And so I said, we have to, Brielle has to be prepared for this.
Mm-hmm.
So I told her on the way to school one day, I said, mommy thinks she has a crush on somebody. And she was like, who? We played this little thing. And then finally I said, Mr. Kevin. She was like, nope.
Nope.
Just nope, huh? Okay. So we started preparing them. I was like, okay, I told Kevin, I said, we have to get her accustomed to being around y'all, because she really is I don't like a lot of change. And so Kevin said, well, we'll come out there and we'll hang out. And we started being really intentional about letting them get to know each other as people and allowing them to work through their feelings about a possible change in the family dynamic.
And with Faith, I would say it was a little bit easier because she was trying to hook me up. So she was going to summer camp and she had became friends with some little girl, and she would talk about like, hey, we're trying to we want to be sisters and you should marry her mom. So I started to open it. So once I started opening, I was like, oh, I'm not trying to marry this person or talk to this. What do you think about Miss Nitra? So she teed it up for me right there.
That's good. That's good.
I love something you guys said though, and we know it, is that you let them work through their feelings. I love that you let them work through their feelings, but you didn't let their feelings stop the progress. I think that's really, really beautiful, because I think a lot of times in blended families, they either let the kids dictate what's happening, or they don't acknowledge that the kids have feelings about what's happening. Because the reality of it is that you and Bree have been together in Atlanta, just the two of you, really.
Yeah.
Now you're talking about not only are you going to get married, but you're going to move back to Arkansas, and she's going to get a sister, and she's not going to see her father all the time, right? I love that you just were just like, she has feelings and I'm going to let her feel them, and I'm going to help her navigate. And we're going to do this in a healthy way. And I love that you guys don't let them destroy the relationship, because in a blended family and in a normal family, if you don't manage the kids will manage the relationship, and they will pit you against each other, which is why a lot of people want to get divorced by the time they our age, right? So I love that you guys are doing that.
Yeah, and we were super intentional about, we read books, we talked about how we wanted to navigate things. Like, this is, we're not going to let that. And I remember one specific conversation with Brielle, and she was having a hard time kind of getting adjusted, and she said, but I thought you loved me and you wanted me to be happy, and if you love me and want me to be happy, you won't get married. Because she didn't want me to get married. And I explained to her, me loving her didn't mean I had to do everything that she said, or everything that she determined made her happy or unhappy. I was like, that's not the definition of love. And I think that was really a big moment for us, because I think she really was like, but I don't understand. You keep saying you'll do anything for me. Well, I'm asking you to do this thing for me, and you're not doing it. How can you say you still love me if you're not doing this thing that I'm telling you is a big deal for me? And I was like, mommy is still going to marry Mr. Kevin, but I want you to be okay with it. How can I help you to be okay with it? Not how can I stop what's going to happen, because that's going to happen.
And once we knew that we were getting married and things were serious, we were also really intentional about sitting both of the girls down and just saying like, hey, I'm not trying to replace your dad. And you said, I'm not trying to replace your mommy. But we were just letting them know and just reassuring them, like, we're still here for you. We still love you each individually, but we're not trying to replace anybody. We're trying to add love.
That's good. Y'all smart.
That's good. That's good. Well, and I asked that question because I know that there are people out there who've had those kind of questions, and you can work through it. You know, there's nothing that we face in some shape, form, or fashion that God doesn't give us an answer for. It may not always be the answer we want, but God gives us an answer and a way to navigate through it. So as we get ready to close, you know, I guess I would like for each of you maybe to just share some encouraging word to people out there who are saying, hey, you know what? I really enjoyed this episode of Relationships 101 tonight. I want to find love again. I didn't even know I did. What are some encouraging words you would tell them about, you know, protecting their heart and all those things to get ready to get back out there again? You know, because you see so many things. Nitra and I were laughing the other day because we talk about how people talk about how it's pee in the dating pool and it's got trash in it and ain't no robot to get the trash out and all of these things. And we end up having what we say, right? So what are some things you could encourage people who say, you know, I do want to find love again. I don't care that I've been, you know, by myself for 5 years or 10 years, or I lost the love of my life, or I got my heart broke, or it just didn't work out. I want to find love again. What would you encourage them? How would you encourage them, I should say?
Keep living your life, not to get stuck in the fact that it looks like there is trash. Like just keep living and doing life, because I think when we get stuck, our mindset gets stuck, and that's what we stop the flow of what's happening, what God's trying to do. We stay in the house, we don't go out and meet people and do those things. So like just keep living life. What other encouragement would I say? Yeah, either one of y'all can jump in.
You have to start somewhere.
Mm.
You know what they say? You miss 100% of the shots you never take.
Yep.
So I mean, just go out to places where people are going to be,
and be friendly when you're out.
But don't shoot every shot.
Every shot.
I think for some guys, we got to teach guys, you don't shoot every shot.
Right.
Shot.
And you gotta teach women, don't block every shot.
Yeah, okay. All right. All right.
So don't
It's
shoot
really
every
women
shot.
out there. It's like he waved, and they're like, "What you waving at me from? I'm married to Jesus." He's like, "Oh, all right then."
I mean, you
Jesus.
don't have to shoot every shot as a guy, but go stand in the corner and be ready to get the ball when you get open.
Yeah.
Put yourself in a position to win.
That's good.
I was gonna say just remain. I ain't gonna say optimistic, but you can remain optimistic. But just know that it's possible. I just want to encourage everybody that it is possible to find love again. It is possible, and God has you. God has you. God knows the desire of your heart because He put it there. And so, because He put it there, He wouldn't put you in a position to not receive what He put in your heart. And so, it's definitely possible. You can find love again. Just submit yourself to that and go through the process so that you can find love again.
Ask me, I want to give one.
Okay, give one. What's yours?
I want to give one. So the thing that I thought that I heard all of you say is how important it is to do self-work. It's very interesting to me that people don't stop and consider, if I'm attracting a same kind of person, there's something in me that needs to be worked on. And years ago, I heard somebody say that there is some turbulence you only experience because you're flying too low. And so if I keep experiencing the same kind of encounters that men or women are engaging me the same way, what do I need to heal and elevate in me so that most people pick what they think they can get.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I'd leave as a parting word of encouragement.
No, that is encouragement.
No,
because
I didn't mean to say it wasn't encouragement. I didn't.
You meant that.
No.
But I'm saying, if I don't like what I'm attracting,
yes,
then the best encouragement I have is to work on myself, so that
elevate yourself.
So those things don't attach to me anymore.
They don't attract those things. Now, I was agreeing with you.
I don't think you were.
I really was. No, I really was. One of the things I was saying.
And don't expect perfection when you get married either. Okay,
that's true.
All right.
Right.
Yeah, but one of the things I was saying, and I do notice, and I talk to people about this when we're talking about finding love again, is that you have to make sure, if you're one of those people and you're out there, dating, or you, for whatever reason, because of a breakup, a divorce, a loss, whatever the case may be, you have to understand that what you expect someone to bring to the table ought to be what you come to the table with as well. And I know I see a lot of that. I talk to a lot of people who feel like that, because I've had ladies who I've talked to, and they like, if he ain't 6'2", if he don't make six figures, if he ain't got a college degree and he ain't got no kids, and I ain't dating him. I'm like, okay, but you don't make six figures. You 5'2", 240, and you ain't got a degree. It's like, but and I know people go, oh my God, Pastor Strick, I can't believe you say that. Yes, because I think when it comes to finding love again, you can't be expecting someone to be a 10, whatever that 10 is that you call it, and then you're a 6, whatever you call a 6, and think that's supposed to be okay. I tell people all the time, I outkick my coverage, okay? I outkicked my coverage when I married Pastor Sean, but it wasn't because I went in trying to say I'm only going to date a 10 when I'm a 5. Sometimes it happens like that, and you just have to give God praise and live on. But you can't show up. You can't show up demanding a 10 when you are strong 5.4. You know,
I would also encourage people to watch what they say. Like
Words
we talk
matter.
about the
Yeah.
dating pool, and like I hear a lot of people talk about it's trash in the dating pool, it's pee, it's poop, it's go to
everything
another
in the dating
pool.
pool.
Like that's not the only pool out there. Go to the
Right.
pool that's not filled with pee. Go to a different pool. Go to
Go to
God.
the private pool instead of the public pool.
Right.
Right,
You in the public
right.
pool. What are you expecting? You go to the gated community pool. Don't go
Right.
to. But our words are men are this, women, all women, this, and then we keep seeing that in our lives. I kept saying through knowing I wanted to get a divorce, getting a divorce, that I kept saying this working for my good. I didn't always know what that meant exactly, but my words were always, it's working for my good.
Mhm.
Ooh, this is weird, but this is working for my good. Not, I ain't gonna never find nobody because dudes are trash. Like, I think if you subscribe to that kind of thinking, you're gonna keep seeing what you say.
Right, and that's why I say it's possible. You know, because if you continuously have that before your thinker, and that's what you're meditating on, and God is allowing you to, I mean, God is speaking to you concerning that stuff. I mean, you're going to find what you're looking for. You're going to find what God is trying to place before you. If I didn't get that word that there is somebody out there that would love me the way I'm supposed to be loved, I wouldn't have been able to change my thinking. I wouldn't have had anything to meditate on. And so that's what I mean when I say it's possible. You have to determine what you begin to see. You can't put that off on anybody else. You have to begin to determine what you begin to see so that God can show you what he wants to give you.
Just because you went on 2 bad dates doesn't mean there's pee in the dating pool.
That's
Come
right.
on, Kev.
You know?
That's
Come
true.
on.
And I'll add to that most people talk about what they don't want instead of what they do want. And you
Mhm.
don't understand that it's just like getting a new car. And we've all had this happen.
Mhm.
You know, before I got my Audi, I had no idea it was so many Audis around, right? Once I got the Audi, now I see an Audi everywhere, right? So you think you're keeping it real, but what you're doing is continuing to attract the things that you don't want, because your women are being funny saying to each other, oh girl, it's pee in the dating pool. So that's all you can see. And on the other hand, there are people out here finding love and getting married. Now, Rod just said,
Now,
wait,
that's a real comment.
now,
Though.
That's true.
comment on the
But we
thing
about
right
to put
now.
this one
But
up.
we
Right?
about to put Rod
Hold
thing
on.
on here.
This is fact.
That's hilarious.
We don't go
Bro.
to relationships 101
Right.
after dark. Sometimes
Right there.
people don't acknowledge the pee and the poop that they left in the pool themselves.
Now, that's fact.
And that's why I love that the
That's
three
fact.
of you talked about being self-reflective.
Yeah.
Because I want to say a lot of times that we would find this in marriage counseling, right? People think they're better partners than they are.
Yep.
People think they're better picks than they are. People are like there's
Oh, it done got real now.
Oh, baby. But everybody swear they a 10.
Mm,
Everybody,
That's what I'm saying.
No, everybody
Yeah.
swears they're a 10.
yes.
And it's like, I think a lot of times people aren't honest about the trauma, the toxic behavior, the foolishness that they brought to the dating pool, that they brought to the relationship. And you're like, I wonder why I can't find somebody peaceful, because you in mess all the time. Like you are attracting what you are. And I know people hate to hear that.
Yeah.
But I'm
Mhm.
telling you, if you don't like what you're attracting, you need to check what you're saying, and you need to check how you're showing up. And I'm gonna say one more thing, and you're probably not gonna like this. Okay.
Well, it ain't never stopped you before. Go
It's
ahead.
never stopped me before. You can't be like, I've been doing it right for 2 years after you've been out here in the streets acting a fool for 35 years. And now you talking about like acting like you've been Pollyanna from the beginning, and now you don't understand. There is this thing still, seed time and harvest, that's at work.
Mhm.
And I think I feel like people don't be being honest with themselves, and that's why they need a really good tribe. Because I remember when I was dating Pastor Strick, I never wanted to get married. Everybody knew that. So when I found out he was the person, I really wanted him to go away and come back when I was 27. Okay. Because I felt like I had some other plan I would like to do before I got married. This is what my friend said to me. She said, you ain't gonna pick that good again. She was like, listen, if you think you love him, you better get married. She said, I am telling you, if you don't marry him, when he 27, he gonna be married with a family, and you gonna be out here with these knuckleheads. You need somebody that can tell you the truth. And she was like, now look at your dating record. Who else have you dated that look like this?
Come on now.
And I think a lot of times people just want to talk about what the other person has done wrong instead of like, people don't really want to have these real conversations.
That's part of the self-work and going to therapy, because you can go to your therapist with all the problems and they can be like, you the problem.
No, you the problem.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And nobody, and you got to free yourself so you can admit sometimes. I wish somebody would just be bold enough to put in the comments. Sometimes it's me.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
No, sometimes it's me.
They like, oh, time to log off. Gotta go. Gotta work tomorrow.
Because if I can acknowledge, here's the thing, I can't change you. But if I can acknowledge it's me, I can change me.
Yep.
So then I can get different experiences.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's it.
Well, if you get a person that's gonna, like the person you say you want, they're gonna hold you accountable, and sometimes you don't want that.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yep.
Who ever get on my nerves trying to hold somebody accountable? Need to mind his own business.
It's like I should have kept, like, okay, I'll give an example. I remember, and this is probably gonna be a crazy example. I remember going out with this guy, and I was like, you know, I want to eat right, blah blah blah. And he was like, girl, eat that. Like, go on and eat that, right? Whereas I'm with Kevin, and he's like, I mean, babe, you can eat it if you want to, but you said.
But you said.
Don't you get out of my business? Is what I want to say.
No, what I want to do is get out my business. And I think,
but like, there's a level of accountability when you're with someone who is a person of integrity. There's a level of accountability when you are with someone who's doing the things you say you want people to do. And if you're not ready for that accountability, you're not going to actually be open to those people.
Yeah.
So what I hear you saying is that if I say I'm a godly woman, then what I probably shouldn't be doing is sexting on the third date and then wondering why he don't engage me like I'm a godly woman.
You could say that, yes.
Okay. Well, y'all can go ahead and log me out because I'm trying to. No, because now we've gotten into what can we do not to be here, right? And over and over again, what we see for women is women who say, I'm a godly woman, I'm a catch, I'm a 10. This is how you're going to engage me. And then when the man starts to give them attention, they forget about all of the standards that they said that they set. And then they begin to get treated like the woman who doesn't have the standards. And then they're confused.
Yeah. This is what happened.
Well, we hope that you have enjoyed this episode of Relationships 101 because we believe that it is possible for you to once again find love, whether you have been divorced, whether you have been a heartbreak, or whether you have just blew it. You can find love again.
And you'll be able to watch the replay as soon as this is over because we want you to have everything that they are talking about having.
Yeah.
But without the transparency, you will never have it.
That's true.
You just won't until you do the self. You can pray and confess all day, but until you do that work, even if you show up and get the perfect person, your issues will create the problems. And so we just all want to grow and become.
We do. And we appreciate all of you who joined us tonight. Again, this replay will be available. Any last words before we go? Nietzsche, I don't know if did I stop you? Were you about to say something?
No, I was thinking, like Kevin and I say it all the time, like it's so cool. Our relationship, both of us, like, man, this is the bomb. This is amazing. Like we're all this stuff, right? But then we say, I'm like, this feels like God was just being extra kind, like extra. And so it's sometimes I'm like, I'm glad I didn't go off and become the bitter woman because I may have been blocking what God was trying to do. I'm glad I did that work or sowed seeds of forgiveness and sowed seeds of compassion. I'm glad those seeds were sown because this harvest is so beautiful. I can't do anything literally, but sometimes I cry. Don't make fun of me. I cry because the harvest is so good, and it's like, you know what? If I had to forgive to get this harvest, man, who else do I need to forgive?
Right.
It hurt me to forgive. So, like, I want to do that work because what God does when you do the work and when you submit to Him is so beautiful. The pain you had before, it's like that was nothing when you look at that what He does in the after. So I just wanted to encourage people. Like, it's not only it can be like God can give you another relationship, He can give you a beautiful other relationship.
I love
So
that.
not this well, yeah, you know, our relationships suck. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, listen, we're going to go. We appreciate those of you who have joined us.
What's our next relationship?
Our next
101?
relationship 101 is going to actually be September the 5th. We typically do it on the second Tuesday, but we're going to be on vacation.
Oh, we are.
September 10th through the 10th through the 11th through the 18th. We're on vacation. So
Vacation.
so we'll do it September the 5th. So we'll put an announcement out. Listen, tell your friends and family to join us. Watch this replay. Send this to somebody if you think it'll help them, because I'm telling you, finding love again is absolutely possible. BJ, Kevin, Nitra, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for spending this hour and 45 minutes with us. We appreciate it, and thank you so much. Anything else
And
you
everybody
wanna say?
who is believing for love, I just want you to put your declaration in there. I will find good love again. I will find good love.
Amen.
This is wonderful. Thank you guys so much.
Cool.
All right. Y'all have a good night.
Good
All
night.
right.